Donald Trump is insisting that the main reason he's interested in Venezuela, the main reason the US is kind of looking at tankers off the coast of Venezuela comes back to drugs, the trade, the smuggling of illegal drugs out of Venezuela. But what if it's not just that? Maybe there's something else going on. What if it's partly about oil?
Shalom Israel, all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai Bahashem, Rahakodash, the one is the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well. Peace, salutations, and blessings to the elect, pushing the word across the four corners of earth, risking your life to do so. All right, and it's the brother Shaman out of Great Millstone, Chicago, back with the war report, and here we go. And see, we bring out the prophecy that, hey, the scriptures talk about how is the hammer of the earth cut asunder. Right, the hammer of the whole earth being Esau, Edom. And you have a lot of people who dispute that. No, that's not what it's talking about. Well, who could it be talking about? All right, who could it be talking about? Because ancient Babylon was not, it was not the hammer of the entire earth. Now, they ruled over the Fertile Crescent, but if I'm not mistaken, they didn't actually get to Egypt. I don't think they got to Egypt, which Egypt is an extension of the Fertile Crescent at the bottom, but I don't think that in ancient Babylon they ruled over Egypt. Now, in Jeremiah 46:13, it talks about the word of the Lord that the Lord spake, the word of the Lord spake to Jeremiah the prophet, how Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, should come and smite the land of Egypt. Declare ye in Egypt, and publish in Migdol, and publish in Noph, and in Tahpanhes, say ye, stand fast and prepare thee, for the sword shall devour round about thee. While the valiant men swept away, they stood not, because the Lord did drive them. Now there were skirmishes, they actually fought, but the Babylonians never took down the Egyptian empire. All right, the ancient Babylonians never took down the Egyptian empire. All right, hey, that's why, you know, Ecclesiastes 3, as we've heard, you know, the elder was going in on Ezekiel 28. You know, how basically, yes, it happened before, but it's also prophetic. It's also prophetic, because everything is nothing new under the sun. Certain things happened before or going to happen again. And Esau, being the embodiment of all these different wicked rulers rolled into one, right, being the serpent, it's all going to happen to him just as it happened before. He's going to walk down the same path, and the same things are going to happen. Right, and that's what happens. Some in the scriptures, when you read, some things are history, some things are purely prophetic, but some things are happened before, but they will happen again. Right, and these things that we read, these different prophecies, Babylon will fall, Egypt will fall. You have to qualify it, but you can link a lot of these things to what's going to happen to America today, which has become the chief empire of the Gentiles. All right, this is the final empire in the age of the Gentiles. Make no mistake, this is the end of the Gentiles, right? The other nations' rulership over the earth before the rule of the righteous is established. All right, just wanted to play this, though, for the war report, because you can't just take somebody's shit. Right? Like, you Christians, how do you justify all these things happening when America does some iniquity? Right? When America shits on its soldiers and has them coming back wounded, and they can't get proper care, and they get their claims denied, and all these different wicked ass actions, man. The thick clay. Like, everybody's in debt right now. Everybody's broke. You know, it's hard times out here for most people. You know, yeah, scripture talk about thick clay, usury. Right? Usury destroys empires. It destroyed the Ottoman Empire. It brought the British down, right? Who had to send gold, a bunch of gold, over to America, right? When it was time to go to war. You know, it's a lot more to it than they just slap on white Jesus and this is the answer and everything's gonna be okay. No, 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 no. There's there's important details. You know, details. That's when you read the scriptures after you read the first couple of times, when you keep going back to read, that's what you're reading for. The details. Details, details, details. All right, but I'm gonna let this play. And this is piracy. This is how wars get started. All right, but again, when you're the hammer of the whole earth, you never keep it home. You could pull this kind of shit for so long until the nations rise up against you. But I'm gonna let it play.
From the standpoint of news, as you probably know, we've just seized a tanker on the coast of Venezuela, large tanker, very large. Largest one ever seized, actually. And other things are happening, so you'll be seeing that later, and you'll be talking about that later with some other people.
How you just gonna take these people? He said the largest one. He wasn't even. We just took something, and they really they owed us for this, and then they went back, and he didn't even try to make it sound. He just like, yeah, we seized it. It's the largest tanker of oil ever. All right, and this is why Venezuela is being picked on. This is why Maduro is coming out and saying that, hey, they're victimizing me. All right, which you do have evidence that people in his office had a part in the drug trade, because that's what South America and Central America have been conditioned to do for the past umpteen years. All right, the United States, the CIA, they stirred it up. They stirred the pot down there. All right, and now you can't uncook it. All right, it's already cooked. All you could do is warm it back up. All right, you have and that's the beast. All right, the beast. Who can make more with the beast? These other countries, they came, they pulled resources out of this place, and then pretty much the only thing these people really have to trade, because they don't manufacture, anything on a broad scale. They don't have factories like that. All these countries are for is for places where they can come and put up a corrupt ruler up, and then have them make deals for all of the raw resources, so that the beast, the United States, and all of the other countries can use that for their empire. All right, and that's been the playbook for them for the longest. But now people are starting to see that and wake up to that narrative. All right, and that's what when you open the scriptures and you start to read what's right, what's wrong, understand judgments. All right, then you can start to understand the narrative, understanding who the wicked is and what their goal is, what their true purpose is, what the true purpose of the righteous is. All right, when we open this book up and declare ourselves as prophets, okay, you say you're a prophet. Well, what does the scripture say on that? Okay, where it says X, Y, Z. All right, we have to fulfill the lot of the prophets. So everybody has to stand in their lot, and they are. All right, and this book allows you to see who's who and what's what based on their actions and based on the things that they say. That's why they don't like the scriptures. They don't like our videos. We've pretty much been blackballed. But for those who have been blessed to see, who the Lord has sent, they're gonna see it anyway. All right, but check this report out, because this is a primary reason why they're going after Venezuela so heavily.
Now, on the surface, you might be thinking, why does America even need Venezuelan oil? And I can kind of understand your point, because if you look at just total oil production, look, this is up until 2005, the US was there, Venezuela was there, Saudi Arabia was there. But as you probably know, since then, everything has changed. Look, American output has gone through the roof, way above Saudi Arabia. And Venezuela has gone basically to the floor. And that's kind of post-Chavez, Maduro. They're one of the minnows now, I think 21st biggest producer in the world. So again, that question, why should America care? Well, in the US, that big rise is largely down to this. It's down to the shale revolution. So you've got fracking all around the US producing extraordinary amounts of crude oil. And here's where we get to the interesting bit. Because when you're thinking about crude oil, maybe you're just thinking about, well, look, barrels of oil. It's all the same, isn't it? Well, actually, no. So if you kind of look at crude oil, there are various different types of crude in different parts of the world. There's actually kind of various different ways you can categorize it, but one way you can look at it is look at the kind of density. So you're basically looking at how thick that crude is. And when I say thick, I mean literally how thick. This is showing you global production broken down by the density of that oil. And so you've got the kind of medium stuff. And this is probably, if you've got a kind of image in your mind of what crude oil looks like, it's a bit like this, it's kind of black, but it's not too viscous, it flows around. But there's other stuff as well. So this is light crude. And it kind of almost looks like a smoothie, doesn't it? And that's the same stuff. This is still crude oil, but down to the kind of geological and the biological conditions in the ground when it was being formed, hundreds of millions of years.
No, it wasn't formed hundreds of millions of years ago. It wasn't formed full of hundreds of millions of years ago, because the Earth is only thousands of years old. Right? Yeah. See, and that's what, when you know the scriptures, you could tell where Esau lies and freestyles, because he's probably been taught that, this is the animals that are broken down, and then look, man, let's go to the scripture about that. Genesis 14:10, and the vale of Siddim was full of slime pits. So it's a land that's full of slime pits, and the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled and fell there. And they that remained fled to the mountain. All right, slime pit. Where is Gomorrah? Slime, pitch. Right? He that toucheth pitch be not innocent. Right? Because you touch that pitch, your hand's gonna be black. Right? Which that's likened unto getting involved with iniquity. Which is interesting that this would be their energy source. Right, that Esau used a lot of dirty energy, right? Gas, and natural gas versus petroleum, which we know in the U.S. as gasoline. They know it as petrol over the ocean. All right, slime, pitch, asphalt, bitumen. So you got slime and shit down there. Yes, Sirach 13:1, he that touches pitch shall be defiled therewith. So I thought it's interesting that Esau would take that and actually use it for energy. And there's better energy sources, man, we're going to figure out for the kingdom of heaven. But for them to figure that out, that you could get that, you could burn it, and then, purify it and throw it in your, use it in a combustion, reaction. Right, in your engine, or to say they do a deep search. Yeah, Esau, he's a light bearer of sorts. They are, as scriptures say, the children of this world are wiser in their generation than the children of the light. But it's coming to a close for that. All right, it was a time where they could think circles around us and figure out how to do this, do that. That the Lord blessed them with that. All right, but now it says that your wisdom is there. Is there wisdom in Tema? So he calls it the prudent to fail. Yeah, the Lord could close your understanding as well.
Formed, hundreds of millions of years ago, it comes out looking a bit different. And so that's light. You've also got heavy stuff. And it's kind of relatively small in global production.
Yes, pitch.
But this is gloopy, super viscous stuff. Heavy oil. So heavy, medium, light. Remember that. And remember also, the key thing here is you get it out of the ground, it may look like that, but ultimately you still need it to go into, someone's car, or indeed, be turned into chemicals. Basically, you need to process it. And that processing, that happens in places like this, in refineries. And there are refineries all over the world, of course. There are refineries all over the US as well. There's kind of more than 100 of them. And if we kind of look at where those refineries are, well, so there's some in California. So the history in America, actually, historically, a lot of the early Californian oil, that was the heavy, gloopy stuff. And if you look at kind of some of the refineries in America, so here are some of the refineries. There's one in LA there. These are the 10 biggest. You've got some up here around kind of towards Canada. We'll kind of come to that in a second. But a lot of them are down there, kind of Texas, Louisiana, on the coast. And here's the critical thing. These refineries are primarily set up for heavy oil, for taking that gloopy stuff and turning it into gasoline and all of the other different products. But here's where things get interesting. And remember that chart I showed you a moment ago, the one which showed kind of shale oil and how it kind of went through the roof? The oil that's generally produced with shale oil, the fracking oil, that comes out of the ground mostly in the light form. So it's the smoothie. It's sometimes actually even clear. It comes out of the ground clear rather than black. And that's the majority of American production right now. Shale oil tends to be light stuff. And actually that's kind of going back 10 years. Look at where we are now. Look at those bars. In the last few years, the amount of light oil being produced in the US.
All of the natural resources are draining up. Esau has drained the earth. Right? It's a reason why the Lord said to keep the land Sabbath. Like, well, I'm gonna just create some seeds so that you can't eat it. Well, the earth becomes drained. All right? It's a reason why the Lord said it. You don't do that, you drain the earth, the nutrients start to get drained up, the land starts to become drained. Right? That's why he said when the true children of Israel return, that land is going to flourish. Right? You're going to look in it like Esau does that. They do mineral testing. Okay, it has this minerals, that minerals. Okay, this will be a good spot to grow this. They actually send that dirt to a lab to process it. They don't play no games. So they understand and know that the nourishment is fading. Right? The oil is drying up. Beautiful times.
It's gone up and up and up, and the amount of kind of heavy stuff has gone down. But back to those.
And that's why they're looking at these other nations they can bully and put in these situations. Oh, well, what are they into? Okay, we could get them on that. All right, he that touches pitch shall not be innocent. You shake hands with these people, because Maduro, they're saying he actually cheated in the election. And then, it was a big fuss, but then it kind of went away. It died down. All right. Then I guess they were trying to see if he would follow orders, and he ain't. All right. Matter of fact, all these people who came here left the country because they like, fuck that. This place is broke.
Refineries, they need to be fed. If America's going to have gasoline, it needs to feed those refineries with heavy oil. So if you look at the kind of imports coming into America, in recent years, even though America is producing so much oil, more oil than it ever produced before, it still needs to suck in loads of oil from overseas. And the type of oil we're talking about, it used to be, it's mostly heavy crude. It used to be only 12%. So only 12% of imports were heavy, gloopy crude. Now, it's about 70%. So 70% of the oil coming into America, which it needs to basically keep its economy.
Yeah, see, if you keep the land Sabbath, the land will keep replenishing. All right, because the scriptures say even the king eateth of the field. But once you go off, now you got to import stuff. Now you have to try to intercept other people's shit, which is a cause for war. And the other nation that has the big thing on crude oil, Russia. Okay, Gog and Magog. And that's why Ukraine, one of the war tactics they're trying to use, they're trying to destroy all of the those processing plants for gasoline. All right, they're trying to target them. They've been targeting a lot of them with drone strikes and explosions, but it's not working out.
Is heavy crude and
the U.S. is trying to push for Ukraine that you got to, come on, man, y'all got to throw in the towel and just let them get that land. But Ukraine is like, hell no. Right? Foolishly, because Russia's not going to stop advancing.
Where does heavy crude come from? Well, here are some of the big...
Yeah, when the Lord wakes you up, man, he rattles your cage. The cage is rattled. All right, Joel 3:9. Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles. Prepare war. Wake up the mighty men. Let all the men of war draw near. Let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong. Assemble yourselves and come, all ye heathen, and gather yourselves together round about. Thither cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Lord. Let the heathen be wakened. What's that word for waken? Yeah, to rouse oneself. I war. Incite, to be roused, stirred up. Yeah, your cage get rattled, to wake up through the idea of opening the eyes. Ooh, like they have that moment and they get that look in their eyes. Right? And that's like us, man. We're being roused up, man. The Lord is waking us up. He's waking us up. We getting that look in our eyes. That's why the scriptures say what? The eyes are the windows of the soul. You can look in a man's eyes and you can see, you know what I'm saying? You can see wisdom. You can see maturity, right? You can look on a man's countenance, at a man's face, and say, wisdom make a man's face to shine. Right? And that's how the Lord works. He'll put you to sleep. He'll put that shame on you, right? He'll darken your countenance, but then he'll also wake you up as well.
Well, here are some of the big countries where you find most of it. It's Canada and Venezuela. There's one other I'll come to in a second, which we'll come back to. But it's Canada and it's Venezuela where you get most of this heavy crude oil, which is why, about to think about where those refineries are, they're mostly set up kind of, you've got some in the north there to get the heavy oil coming out of Canada, and you've got some around the kind of Louisiana and elsewhere and Texas to get that heavy oil that comes in from Venezuela. That was kind of the way they were set up. And it's really expensive to rebuild these things. You can't just chuck out a refinery very easily overnight. Some came from Mexico and the Gulf of Mexico as well, and that was pretty heavy too. So that's the picture in America. And the upshot is, even though America is producing more and more oil, the imports, this is showing you imports of oil into America, are still really high. And if you break down those imports by the country that stuff is coming from, well, there's Venezuela. And it used to be a decent slug, actually more coming from Venezuela just about than from Canada, just at the turn of the millennium. But now look at what's happened since. Right now, Canada has gone from 15% of all of the US imports of oil to 61%. 61%. And Venezuela is basically next to nothing. But here's what's tantalizing, and here's the reason I think that a lot of people are looking towards Venezuela and thinking, well, there's more to this than just drugs. Look at total oil reserves around the world. The higher these bars are, the more oil there is in the ground, so that hasn't yet been taken out of the ground. So there you've got Saudi, Iran, Iraq, all of the usual suspects. But the biggest of all, and this is according to various different sources, the biggest of all is Venezuela.
Mm-hmm. Let's say he shall dip. Yep. Deuteronomy 33:24. And of Asher, he said, let Asher be blessed with children. Let be acceptable to his brethren, and let him dip his foot in oil. Yeah, their foot is dipped in oil. Crude oil. It's a reason. It's a reason why the narrative is what it is.
Venezuela. And what's that oil? It's the heavy, tarry stuff that you might want to put into those American refineries. And there is really only one other place in the world that has a kind of serious amount of heavy oil other than Canada and Venezuela. And lo and behold, guess where that is? It's Russia. All of which is to say, you know, it matters what kind of oil America needs. It's worth just delving into these kind of nuances because that helps you understand a little bit more about the backstory of geopolitics.
Exactly. So you see the backstory, you see why, the motivation. I believe it. I believe it. A lot of the stuff that they're saying is lies. And maybe they are giving some half-truths in there, but Esau is the father of lies. All right. But Lord willing, this is edifying. I thought that was interesting. You know, just update on the war report. Shalom to the elect.